Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can I have everyone's attention, please? Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. You all give Sister Cross another round of applause. That's a beautiful song. Good. And that's an original. That's a song that she wrote herself, so thank you. My name is Scott Crothers, Director of African American Student Service here at the University of New Mexico, and it is indeed an honor. It's a privilege for me to be able to welcome you to our annual Black Cultural Conference. The revolution will not be hashtag. Amen. Give us a hand. Good. Today we have with us Dr. John Carlos, who will be our living legends that you will hear more from him and his 50th anniversary of the 1968 Olympics. Also today we will honor our trailblazers that have paved the way for us at the University of New Mexico in Barbara Simmons and Sam Johnson as our trailblazers. And finally, we incorporated African American Student Day, the high school students from around Albuquerque and the rest of the metro area, to not only acclimate them to the University of New Mexico, but to post-secondary education and to expose them to African American student service. And I must indeed say, it is an honor to see you high school students. Please give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you very much. With that, I have some people that I like to recognize in the room. There were some folks that I recognized earlier this morning, but Dr. Charles Becknell, Director of Africana Studies, please wave your hand. Thank you. Treasurer James Lewis, our elder statesman, please give Mr. Lewis, there you are. Mr. Ron Wallace, the man down there over on the camera. Say hi to that sir. Francine Cordova, our OEO director, please raise your hand. Mr. Mike Davis, all the way from Las Cruces, New Mexico. He's here somewhere, my friend. Director Yvette Bell and her staff, the State Office of African American Affairs. You all please raise. Thank you. Dr. Terry Babbitt, Chief of Staff of the President's Office. Dr. Walt Miller, and of course, Dr. Tim Gutierrez, please, again, and the Black Alumni Chapter here at the University of New Mexico under the leadership of Barbara Simmons, but also Dean Roberts is here with us today, too. You guys make sure you give him a round of applause. With that, we thank you all for being here. Our leader is here today from the University of New Mexico. You all please give her a warm welcome. This is a new setting for her at the university. Please give Dr. Garnett Stokes a round of applause.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. This happens to me all the time. I'm just going to have to hold it up. Welcome to the 2018 Black Cultural Conference Living Legend Keynote Luncheon. I am absolutely honored to be with you today. While I'm happy to see those of you who are Lobos in attendance, I'd also like to take a moment to welcome those who came from outside institutions, both colleges and high schools. And I'm also pleased to see community members here from Albuquerque in the room as well. Thank you all for coming to Albuquerque for this important forum. Let's give all of those who came here from outside a round of applause. So this year's conference commemorates the 50th anniversary of the UNM Black Student Union. We are privileged to have several of its inaugural members in attendance, engaging with our students and with our community. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to these trailblazing Lobos. I certainly want to commend Scott Carruthers and the African American Student Services staff for organizing this conference. The University of New Mexico is excited to host the 2018 Black Cultural Conference. We are honored to have Dr. John Carlos as our keynote speaker, a man whose silent yet powerful statement at the 1968 Olympics was heard around the world, and whose passion and courage continue to inspire the next generation of activists. I'm thrilled that our campus has the opportunity to hear him speak. Excuse me, I'm battling this terrible cold, and now I'm going to lose my voice right here in front of all of you. And what a terrible thing to lose one's voice, isn't it? So, student activism, which largely became prominent. Oh, I'm getting a lot of help. Thank you.
3 different people brought you water, so thank you.
Now, isn't this a great group? Yeah, I've had this for 2 weeks. But I just haven't had it happen in front of an audience.
No, that's fine.
All right. Well, so I have something really important to say, so I'm hoping I will get this out. Student activism, which largely became prominent in the 60s and 70s as a result of social and political issues, was so impactful that it led to a rise in political prominence and formally established student political groups on campuses throughout the country. Student activism continues to be extremely important and impactful in social change, politics, and legislation today. It is my hope that you are inspired by the words of Dr. Carlos to learn that activism is not violence. Activism is about passionately taking a stand for what is right and believing in the power that each of us has to peacefully inspire change rather than complacency. As Dr. Carlos's experience proves, a silent gesture can be more powerful than brutality. Thank you very much.
You all please thank the president again. Thank you. And I saw our alumni director, Dane Allen, here as well. So hello. And I saw our dean of the Honors College, Dr. Bregman, there. So thank you all for coming. With that, I'd like to ask Ms. Barbara Simmons, the president of our Black Alumni Chapter here at the University of New Mexico, to do the introduction of Dr. John Carlos. Ms. Simmons.
I am deeply honored to present our guest speaker because he was a personal inspiration for me when I was 23 years old. Dr. John Carlos is a medal USA track and field Hall of Fame athlete and Olympian. Competing in the 200 meters, Dr. Carlos earned the gold in the 1967 Pan American Games and the bronze in the 1968 Olympics. As a youth, growing up in Harlem, New York, Dr. Carlos was a gifted athlete and student whose influences and sense of hard work and determination were instilled by his mother and father. It was a local police officer who first prompted young John to pursue track and field as more than just a game of chance with the neighborhood kids. Dr. Carlos made world history during the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City, Mexico, when he took the international stage during the medal ceremony and made a speechless statement heard and seen worldwide. Winning the 200 meters, Dr. Carlos accepted the bronze medal at the Olympic podium wearing black socks and no shoes. This was to represent impoverished people who had no shoes of their own, and raised a black gloved fist, crowning a bowed head to humbly reflect the strength of the human spirit. Dr. Carlos was joined in his name by teammate and gold medalist Tommy Smith, and both were supported by silver medalist Australian Peter Norman, who wore an Olympic Project for Human Rights badge. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to introduce you to our keynote speaker, Dr. John Carter.
That's right.
This is so sudden that I was going to get a chance to eat a little bit before I talk. But first of all, let me start by saying it's a great honor for me to be here with you this evening, this afternoon. Wow, it's just a beautiful scenery here to see all you guys in here, and most of you guys are young and inspiring. You know, I'm here because probably one of the alumni from this school here was a mentor to me when I first got involved in track and field. I always called him the great Adolph Plummer. He was a great runner to represent the United States throughout his career in track and field. Jamaican born, raised in Brooklyn, New York, and attended the University of New Mexico. I met him when I was a young individual trying to find my way in life, and he taught me quite a bit about track and field. He taught me about a thing called psychology. He put me in a race and actually applied some psychology to me that I had no idea that psychology applied to track and field or to any sport. But yet still, he set me up real sweet and told me, he said, we're going to run this race again. No one on the planet Earth can beat you running. I'm going to run the race with you tomorrow to make you feel comfortable. But I don't think that I can beat you or anyone can beat you in this stadium. So what we're going to do, so we don't kill ourselves, we'll come out the blocks when they shoot the gun nice and relaxed, lackadaisical, and when we get 10 yards out from the tape, we'll dash and the best man win. Well, you know, as a youngster, you know, you look up to your elders, and I just felt like that's great because now I feel like I'm with the big boys. And when the gun went off, I came out, as I stated, lackadaisical, just easy, and I had this peripheral vision. And I see this guy on the side racing with everything that he's got, and he's in full blast. When we got to the tape, I ran him down, but he won the race. And he looks down at me and he smiles and he says, young man, he said, you've been psyched out. And I looked at him, I said, psyched out? He said, yeah. He said, I put a spin on your mind and I beat you in the race, not because of my ability, because I psyched you out. But right away I learned from that, and I told him, I said, well, Mr. Plummer, I appreciate that. You're the first man to psych John Carlos out, and you definitely will be the last man to psych John Carlos out. So from that day forth, I've been applying the psychology. How did I get involved in track and field? I got involved in track and field primarily because I saw so many things wrong, and God sends certain things your way. If each and every one of you youngsters in here look, God gave you a little basket, and he gave you gifts in the basket. Sometimes we have to slow ourselves down to look and find this basket and see what talents God gave us. I had multiple talents. I was the best swimmer in New York, and I thought that I might exceed in swimming and go to the Olympic Games as a swimmer. My father had to tell me one day with pain in his eyes that I would never make it to the Olympic Games as a swimmer. And I told him, I said, Pop, I'm the best New York bathtub swimmer there is. Why wouldn't I make the Olympic Games? And he put his hand out and he rubbed his hand and said, merely because of the color of your skin, you won't be able to attend the Olympics as a swimmer. Then he looked at me and he said, well, son, are you going to give up? I said, no, I'm a good fighter. I'm going to go to the Olympic Games as a boxer. My mom stepped up and told me, she said, no, son, you're my baby boy, and I would not allow you to box because I don't want to break your face up. I tried to tell my mother, she said, no, Mom, I'm good. All I want to do is make $1 million, and if I make $1 million, they have to find $110 million to find me. I know what to do with a dollar once I have it. So that went past that. But then I had this young individual on the TV that impressed me so much, and I think he would impress any urban kid. And this guy had a funny outfit on, a funny looking hat, and some kind of feather sticking out his hat. I think his name was Robin Hood. Now, why was I impressed with Robin Hood? Because Robin Hood was the type of guy that he wasn't concerned about man's law as much as he was concerned about God's law. He wasn't concerned about the king. He wasn't concerned about the sheriff of Nottingham. He was concerned about the people. I was impressed with that. He said, I can't control anything but Nottingham Forest. So if the king and all his men come through, they have to pay a tariff. Well, I saw in my neighborhood so many young individuals that had drug epidemic taking place in their life. When I say a drug epidemic, I mean most of you kids in here, if you was back in that time, 99% of you wouldn't have a father in the household. Merely because the father went one day looking for escapism because he looked in the mirror one day and realized he didn't particularly like himself. And you sit back and say, well, how does a man not like himself? Now you brush your face, every morning brush your teeth, wash your face, brush your hair, but you never really look at the reflection. This particular day, black men decided we will look in the mirror, and when we looked, they saw the image and didn't like it. Why they didn't like it? Because they couldn't be the father to their kids. They couldn't be the husband to their wives. They couldn't be the breadwinner. Imagine a father telling a daughter, say, baby, when your birthday comes, I'm going to get you that dress you wanted for your birthday. And she comes back to you and reminds you, say, Daddy, my birthday is tomorrow. Are you going to be able to buy me that dress that you told me you're going to buy? And he said, yes, baby, I'm going to get you that dress. But he goes down the hall and he puts his hand in his pocket and there's nothing in there but holes. Before he could digest that, his son comes in and says, Pop, my PE teacher told me if I don't get some tennis shoes, I'm going to fail PE tomorrow. You going to be able to get me some tennis shoes? Yes, son, I'm going to be able to get you some tennis shoes. He goes down the hall, he put his hand in his other pocket. He's got bigger holes. Now his wife with the coup de grace, she said, baby, we've been married for 15 years. What are we going to do for our anniversary? And then tears well up in his eyes because he realized now that I can't be the man that I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be the breadwinner. I'm supposed to be the leader. I'm supposed to be the father. He said, I can't even go out and get a decent job. And then someone came and said to him, say, take this little package here and it'll help you. This little package was medication, drugs. They thought it was a weekend spin, but it turned into like an 80-year transition. Because for the last 80 years, black kids throughout the United States did not have a father to come home to in the evening because they were missing in action from that weekend trip of using narcotics. So then I began to look at what is my role in life? What's my role? What am I here for? I couldn't be the boxer that I wanted to be. I couldn't be the swimmer that I wanted to be. I used to be in front of the Savoy Ballroom. You guys look it up, you'll find that was one of the greatest nightclubs in the history of nightclubs. And all the white folks used to come in from downtown, and me and my buddies would go, and we would get little timbales, and we would sing My Bonnie Lies Over Ocean. That was our hustle to go open up the cab doors and help all the young white ladies out, help them get into the Savoy Ballroom. And I had one guy that got there every year he would come through. Sometimes he would have a top hat and pigtails, but he would always give up a silver dollar. He would always flip a silver dollar. And then one day he says to me, he says, say, young man, you know why I always give you guys a silver dollar? He said, because you always give a good show for the money. Well, I was a Jew, a good show for the money. And I always felt like anything that I do in life from that point on, I had to make sure it was a good show. So now I started walking around realizing that I was lucky, I was blessed to have a mother and father in my household where there were so many of my friends that did not have that situation. But when I began to branch out and go to their houses, I realized that it was deeper than the fact that they didn't have a father in the house. I realized that they had no food in the icebox. I realized that they didn't have any clothes in the cabinet, in the closet. No food in the cabinets. Any kid that had any clothes to wear to school that next day was a hand-me-down from their big brother or their big sister. Then I looked more into John Collins, who am I? I started seeking answers because every young individual's young mind has voids in their mind and they're trying to fill them. And I tried to fill them, so I started running around with these guys that were shooting these drugs, asking them, why do you shoot these drugs? That's how I obtained the story that I just talked to you about earlier. But then one time, I got to the point where I started thinking about Robin Hood. I started thinking about the depression of the people, and I started thinking about how I could help. Then I started hitting freight trains. I wasn't brought up to be a robber or a thief. That's man's law to tell me that I shouldn't do these things. That was my father's law in the household. But there's a person called Almighty, and his law was to say that everybody should be created equal and everybody should have a chance to eat and have a decent life. So I took it upon myself to do some things out of the ordinary. And just so happened it was two police officers, Mr. Lester and Mr. Bryant. They would never catch me, but they would always catch a lot of my partners. But the police are so smart, those two cops are so smart, they knew that they didn't have to run me down with their feet or their legs, they ran me down with their eyes. And they went to my father one day and said, Earl, there's been some breakers at the freight yards and you need to tell Johnny, and my father stopped him. He said, nah, that's your job. He's over at McCoon's Park. Go over there and see if you can find him. Well, they came over and they said to me, they said, come on the track, we want to talk to you. Now, Mr. Lester was about 5'11" and 6 feet. Mr. Bryan was about 6'6" and 6'7". Mr. Bryan said to Mr. Lester, he said, go on and tell him. And Mr. Lester said to me, he said, son, there's been some break-ins at the freight yards. We think we know who is doing it. We can't do anything to him until we catch him. And he pushed his nose up against mine to let me know, and we are going to catch him. Before I could digest that, Mr. Bryan said, go on and tell him the other thing. And Mr. Lester says, you know, you have a talent. You know, most of us don't look at ourselves in terms of having any talent. He said, you have a talent. And I said, well, what talent do I have? And he said, you're a runner. And when he said I'm a runner, I smirked like that. And Mr. Bryan smacked me on one side of my head, and his fingers rolled over down to my cheeks. Don't you ever disrespect Mr. Lester. I said, I'm not disrespecting him. You say I'm a runner. Every kid in the neighborhood was a runner. But I wasn't thinking about the kids as much as I was thinking about my mother, because we had a methodology as kids at that time. A lot of kids back in that era, what they were doing because they didn't have jobs or anything, they would go out and they would snatch a woman's purse and run. My mother came home from work one night. She worked at Bellevue Hospital as a nurse, and she came home from work one night with her legs bleeding, her stockings all torn up. My brothers and my father, we was all upset. What happened, Mama? What happened? She said, someone snatched my purse. All right away, we determined we're going to go find this individual that snatched the purse. My mom said, no, that's okay. All I need is some Mercurochrome and I patch it up and I'll be good to go. We said, no, we're going to get your purse back. My mother said, that's not necessary. I said, Mom, what do you mean it's not necessary? She said, I got my purse back. And my father looked at her and said, well, how you get your purse back? She said, I ran him down and got my purse back. So I'm telling the police that me being a runner is not just for me. Everyone in the neighborhood is a runner. But then when I got involved in track and field, something else came to my mind. Why did God send me to track and field when I could have been a great swimmer? I could have been a great boxer. Or why did he send me to track and field? So I had to have a purpose for why I'm running track. Now I'm making the connection between what I saw as a kid with no food in the icebox, the drugs coming into the community, no dad in the house, lack of education, lack of concern. So I said, well, maybe if I perfect this game that God gave me called track and field. You know, he gives all of us a talent, but you can't just leave it as to what he gave it to you. He gave you that little divider between you and the wide receiver. The defensive back got that little cushion. And that cushion span is where you're supposed to perfect your game. I chose to perfect my game because I was on a mission to bring to light as to what was happening to people in my life. I felt like the better I got in track and field, the more I would be able to turn up the volume and speak on issues that concern me and concern so many others that didn't have a voice. I didn't know what an activist was until I met a guy called Dr. King one day. And through conversation, he made me understand that I was an activist. Activism is something that we all have in us, we just have to find it. As a track guy, most track guys want to be the best that they can possibly be. They want to go to the track meet and they want to win medals. I wasn't concerned about winning medals because no one had to give me a medal for me to determine what gifts God gave me and how good I was in my sport. But then I began to look at so many young kids out today and I try and say, where are you today relative to where I was back in 1955? I see so many kids here that's in high school, but I think everybody here in high school right now can reflect right now and know 10 of their friends that's not going to school, but going through school. Let me repeat that. You have 10 friends that you can point out in your brain right now that you know don't go to class. They come in the gate the same time you come in the gate in the morning, but before the first period, they're going out the back gate to get on to do what they need to do and then get back for lunch. You will never turn society around being ignorant. Education is the strongest. Hey, listen, guys. I hear a couple of people want to applaud and so forth, and I appreciate your applause. But my wife and kids, they get mad at me when I do this, but I do this because I'm not here for applause. I'm here to make a connection. God told me, he said, Johnny, your mission is to reach one person in the house today. And then he whispered to my right ear and told me, he said, but you're doing so much better than that one person. But before I could stick my chest out feeling good about what he said in my right ear, he goes back to my left ear and he said, but don't forget your mission is to reach one person. I'm not here trying to do a song and dance and looking for applause. My ego is not that tight. I always tell people, but if you must applaud, go in your pocket and throw jingle up here. So where did I leave off? You threw me off with that. So anyway, what I was saying about you youngsters out there, you have to encourage your friends to get back in the fold, have a conversation with them, and ask them, say, what do you want out of life? What did I want out of life? I wanted to be recognized for an individual that had his head screwed on tight. I knew who the man in the mirror was. I knew where he was going, and I knew how many people I was able to gather, to gravitate, to move forward in society as I am. I'm getting to the point where I'm an old man now. I remember when I was 23 years old and went to the Olympic Games, and I was young and fresh in the whole 9 yards, and now I look in the mirror, and the only thing young in me is my eyes, because everything else can change. But I'm saying to myself right now, why does God have me always coming to the mic to give speeches? And I found out recently that he has me coming here because I'm looking for someone out there to take the baton from me, to step up, to encourage young individuals, to inspire individuals to make change in society for the better. Think about athleticism. A lot of our kids think that they are athletic students, where they should be realizing that they're a student athlete. A lot of us go and think when we go to college, or we should go to college and think, I don't really have to go to class because I'm the high point man shooting that basketball. Or I can run that football. Well, if you can do it on the football field or on the basketball court, you should be able to do it in the classroom just as much, because it takes just as much brain power to do it in the athletic field as it takes in the classroom. It just depends upon whether you guys are serious about the life that you have. I'm looking at the adults in here. All the adults in here have a life. When you was young, like these high school students, you wasn't concerned about life, but you began to have a life the minute you had your first child. Because when your first baby is born, now you're not concerned about your life, you're concerned about the life of your child. You should, if you're not, you should be concerned about what can I do to make this a better society so my child would have an opportunity to be successful in life. For all you high school kids, Just as I'm talking about the adults having their first child, your day is coming too, where you're going to have your first child.
Your microphone fell over.
Did it fall?
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
You on the case, brother. Oh, man. The question is, what are you going to do for your kids? Are you going to stand up and say, I want to make sure that my kid has a decent education? I remember I had a vision one day when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And it was like God gave me a roadmap to what my life was going to be like. Why did God give me a vision at 73 years old? Today I'm still asking that question that I asked after I had this vision. But God chose to show me myself in a forum. I didn't know what a stadium was, but I was in a grass field. There was a tremendous amount of people in this area. They were applauding vigorously, excited. And me being a little boy on this box standing in this grass field, it didn't dawn on me until a minute or so that there must be applauding about me, something I did. God never showed me what I did. But they were applauding, and I say, I'm the only one out here, it must be me. And I always tell guys, when I used to fight in the neighborhood, I knocked a lot of guys out with this right hand. But in this vision, I didn't use my right hand. I had my left hand going up to wave. And you know, when you're a little kid and you do something and you want people to see you, you're trying to wave as high as you can wave. And I went to wave my hand in this vision, and my hand got frozen in time just like that. And that's exactly where that picture was in Mexico City 15 years later. Why did it freeze in time? Because all of the joy and happiness those people had, and instantaneously it turned to anger and venom. It sent me into a nosedive. I was kind of like shocked from this vision. I've never experienced anything like that before. And I remember going to dinner that night, and my father looked at me and said, Johnny, what's the matter? I said, Daddy, I was in a movie. He said, you was in a movie? Well, he could see that I was destroyed. He said, well, what's the matter? What happened? I said, Daddy, everybody was happy about something I did. And then all of a sudden, they got mad and they started calling me names and they started throwing things at me and spitting me and telling me where to go. And I remember my father brought me into his rib cage and he looked over my head and he said to my mother, he said, it looked like God's got something special in mind for this kid. We're going to have to wait and see. And my father looked at me and he hugged me close and he told me, say, son, my job is to love you, protect you, house you, and see that you get a good education. And I asked him, I said, Pop, why are you pushing me so much to get an education? Because no one in my neighborhood, I don't see the bank president in my neighborhood. I don't see the chief of police in my neighborhood. I don't see anyone from any major corporation in my neighborhood. Why are you pushing me to go get education? He said, son, so you can compete, so you can be ready to deal with society. Imagine if I was a track guy and they asked me about what was happening in my neighborhood and I couldn't articulate. I couldn't talk on the mic. Imagine if I was to go out and try and sell some insurance and I came to your house and I couldn't present my insurance program to you. Imagine if I was a guy that said, I'm a good quarterback, but I can't read the playbook. Everybody has to have some sort of education. It's vital. It's two types of food that you'll realize in life. There's a food that if you don't eat it, I asked him, if you don't eat that food, brother, what happens to you? No, I'll get deeper than that. If you don't eat, what's going to happen? If you don't eat, you're going to die. Well, there's another food called education. If you don't eat that food called education, you're going to wish you were dead. You feel me? You know, life is like a game. We have any athletes in the house? Let's show of hands. How many athletes in here? All right, all you athletes out here, did the team come and get you, or did you go and say, I want to apply to the team. I want to see if I can be on the basketball team, or the football team, baseball team. You went and applied for that job. What's the concept of any game, son? Why are you playing the game? You, with the brown suit. Don't look around. No, you were playing the game because you want to be in the game. He said he's playing it because he wants to be in it. I play the game because I want to win the game. Right? I don't just merely want to be in the game, I want to win the game. And just like I said, those individuals that apply for that game, everyone here sitting in this auditorium, young and old, is in the game. You understand this? You didn't apply to be in the game. Most of you guys didn't apply. You was pushed out into the game when your mother gave birth to you. Because this life that you live is a game. But the concept is still the same. And the concept is to win. At all costs, to win. If people are being oppressed, that should give them much more desire to be a winner and say, I want to come out of this depression that I have. If people are economically deprived, I want to win. I want to break out of this economic restraint that I have on me. All of us come from nothing. And all of us strive to be something or someone. You know, young kids, when you sit back and think about racism and prejudice that goes on in society today, if you sit back and think about it, I can take a Chinese kid, I can take a Hispanic kid, I can take a black kid and a white kid, and take a ball and throw the ball on the field. And all those kids will get together, regardless of what their ethnic background, and they will have fun with that ball. And then along the way, somewhere, they start getting divisive and separatist because someone took those young kids and decided that I'm going to teach them how to be a racist. No kid is born a racist. Racism is taught in people's households. Just like they teach their kids, it's your responsibility to teach other kids, hey man, you can get around being a racist. When you think about racism, think about when does racism take a second seat? When does racism sit down? When God steps in and says, okay, I have to make these people realize that they're one. And when do you become one? When the fires start and all the houses are starting to burn down, or when the floods come, all the houses are flooded out, or when the earthquake comes and everything is shaking. Then we all forget about who's rich, or who's poor, or who's white, or who's black, or who's fat, or who's skinny, or who's good looking, or who's ugly. It don't matter because we all coming together to put out the fire. We all coming to try and save one another from the earthquake. But once the thing stops, then we all have a tendency to run back into our little corners, our little cubby holes where we feel like we're secure, and I don't like this and I don't like that. And one of the biggest reasons why we don't understand one another, because the educational institutions, the high schools, the grade schools, they never teach kids about the other cultures in the society. Hispanics don't know a whole bunch about blacks no more than what somebody told them. They ain't never studied. Blacks don't know nothing about whites, and whites don't know nothing about blacks, and Asians don't know nothing about none of y'all. It's because we don't understand their culture, they don't understand our culture. We're going to put you out of here. So when you sit back and think about the different cultures, you know, someone told me, I went up into Topeka, Kansas the other day. I had about 2,000 students there. And I told them, I said, Kansas is a red state. You know, I got into politics for a minute. And Kansas is a red state. And I have a history where most of the red states didn't particularly care for my history. But I saw a significant change taking place when I saw 2,000 kids there, and I saw there was 800 high school kids there. Am I done? 800 high school kids there. And out of the 800 kids, I would say 700 was young white kids. I noticed in high school, every kid that goes to hear a speaker, today they make your parents sign an affidavit giving you permission to go to the speech. To see that many white kids in a red state to come and hear me speak, it makes me realize that there's a change coming about. People are starting to want to intermingle and trying to learn about who you are and learn about what my faults might be and learn about how I can be a better individual. Why? Because the almighty power in this whole universe is telling us that time is running out. Time is running out. We don't have a whole bunch of time left to get it right. As I told you, you're looking for your kids. be concerned about your kids? Much time. But I see you send the police over here. Got the police at the steps. But guys, I can talk all day about the Olympic Games. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the Olympic Games. You know, with so many guys that all their lives, they've been taught to want to go to the Olympics. They've been taught to want to win the gold. They want to represent the stars and stripes. And I feel good about all of those individuals that want to make the games. But we felt back in 1968, this young lady that came up and gave an overview as to who I am, she felt it was necessary to get together with some other women and start a Black Student Union. We wanted to make people have an understanding, as much as America shows sometimes their disdain for people of color in this nation, Black people and people of color want to show America that we love them. So we want to go to the Olympic Games to represent America as much as when the wars came down, the First World War on down to the Vietnam War. Black people dove for the idea to go and fight to represent America. But yet and still, when they came home from the Olympic Games or they came home from the wars, they felt America did not represent them. So we wanted to put a focus on that. We said, how can we put a focus on to stop racism and bias? So we had to go to the library. And we was in the library constantly. Are y'all sending the police up the steps? Push him back. Push him back. Let me get this out and I'm done. Oh, the high schools have to go. I keep forgetting how y'all look so grown. Well, anyway, the bottom line was, so many of them didn't want to go to the Olympic Games, but they felt they must go. Decisions that they made then not to boycott those games, here we are 50 years later, and each and every one of them today say, if I had to make that decision again, I think I'd have passed up that gold medal now to stand for something far greater than medals. Humanity is far greater than any medal or reward they can give you. Step up to the plate, be who you are, be who God chose you to be. God bless you and thank you for my time.
Dr. John Carlos, I'm not the police, but your friend made me. This is Renee Madison, a member of the Black Alumni Chapter and a good friend of Dr. John Carlos. On behalf of African American Student Services and the Black Alumni Chapter, we want to thank you for being a living legend.
Thank you.
I have to say, this guy and I go back to the 60s. We were competitors together, and I hadn't seen it.
Let me just show you how we were competitors. I used to be up here. I didn't realize until 10 years later that we was partners, because I never looked back.
I do have a newspaper clipping. All righty. But anyway, on behalf of the Black Alumni Chapter and African American Student Services, we thoroughly enjoyed your speech with us today, your enthusiasm, and I'm hoping everyone will take something out of this, and somebody's going to carry that to time.
I hope so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, we'd also like to thank Albuquerque Public Schools, Tanya and Ms. Joycelyn, Rio Rancho Public Schools, Ms. Myra and Ms. Shalonda for supporting us this year with African American Student Day. We had 200 high school participants in our conference. Thank you so much. This year is special for us because we've merged African American Student Day in with with our Black Cultural Conference, and we're also honoring the 50-year anniversary of the Black Student Union at this university. We're so honored and lucky to have our charter members here in attendance, and we have the current Vice President of the Black Student Union, Danielle Kervin, to give a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like she said, my name is Danielle Kervin. I'm the Vice President of the Black Student Union, and I'm very humbled to be able to present you Trailblazers Award to our 1968 charter members of the Black Student Union. Can I have the Black Student Union please stand? The University of Mexico Black Student Union. Come to the front, members. So 50 years ago, they were fighting racial tensions on this campus and an uncomfortable campus climate physically and emotionally for Black students. And 50 years later, we're still continuing that fight with racial tensions in our classroom, in our residence halls, in our student government, student activities, as well as other areas of campus. If some of you may not know, if you haven't been watching the news, the Black Student Alliance, in conjunction with the Black Student Union, has made local and state news calling out members of our campus who are making racial remarks. So we are holding them accountable, and we will be taking action if necessary. But what needs to be understood is none of that can happen without the foundation that was laid by the 1968 Black Student Union charter members. Thank you for being true trailblazers for the University of New Mexico. And we are presenting these to Barbara Brown Simmons, Joe Long, and Sam Johnson. Thank you.
Mr. Joe Long has passed away, so we have Ms. Helen Hamilton receiving the award posthumously. And we just thank you all for being trailblazers on this campus, and we'd like to get a picture with you all in our UNM Black Student Union. But we'd also like to ask any other VSU members at any of the other schools attending our conference to please stand up so that you can see what paths you've really blazed for our students.
Good afternoon. It's indeed an honor for the current Black Student Union to remember the Black Student Union members in 1968, the first Black Student Union. The Black Alumni Chapter, we have a Black Alumni Chapter at the University of Mexico that started in 2011. And the goal of the Black Alumni Chapter was to establish contact between the university and its Black alumni, to assist with the maintaining of the African American Student Services and Africana Studies program, to assist in recruitment, retention, and graduation of Black students at UNM, to provide an historic archives of the Black student civil rights movement and its contributions to UNM, to establish a Josephus Joe Long Scholarship Fund for high school and college students, and to establish a biannual UNM Alumni Chapter publication. That was our mission from our beginning. Let me just say that two of the projects that we're most proud of is the Joe Long Scholarship Fund. We have a scholarship fund in the name of Joe Long, who was our first Black Student Union president. He was a committed leader and committed to equality. Now, our scholarship fund has been endowed What that means is we have raised more than $25,000. Our scholarship became endowed, and it is now a permanent scholarship at the UNM Foundation. It will be there as long as there's a UNM Foundation. And I see a lot of clapping hands, and I hope that all of you that are clapping will make a donation today to our scholarship fund. And Renee Madison, Renee, can you stand up? If you have your checkbooks or if you just want to give them money, this is the person to give it to, because we're still collecting money for our scholarship fund. We want to make sure every year we give our scholarship to an African American student. Another project that we're most proud of is our Charles P. Roberts Fellowship. It's an annual fellowship, and I'd like to call it right now Dr. Charles P. Roberts. Dean Charles P. Roberts. Dean Roberts was the first Black associate dean at the University of Mexico, and until he came on board as a dean, the Black Student Union could not become a legitimate organization because nobody wanted to be our faculty advisor. So when Dean Roberts came on campus, one of his first acts was to become our faculty advisor, and one of his second acts was to establish the current African American Student Services. Dean Charles P. Roberts. We're going to have Dean Roberts to introduce our current fellow, Stella. Can you come, Stella? This is our 2017-2018 Charles P. Roberts Fellow. And I'm going to say Stella, and I'm going to let her pronounce her last name.
Hi, I'm Stella Kendayomi.
Okay. So we want to get a picture together with Dean Roberts and our fellow. We've been doing this since 2012. So to date, the Black Alumni Chapter is responsible for $90,000 in funds to Black graduate students. This is a proud accomplishment for the Black Alumni Chapter. And before I get off the stage, I would be remiss if I didn't introduce our board. Darvish Willard, can you stand? She's our website coordinator. Renee Madison, our secretary. William Hamilton, our vice president. And Stanley Mosley, our treasurer, is not here today. He had a death in his family, but he's been a very good treasurer. Also, on our board as ex officio members is the Director of African American Student Services, Scott Carruthers. A backbone and support for our organization, and Dr. Charles Dale Jr., African Studies. And I want to say that I want to recognize our co-founder, Sam Johnson, and I founded the Black Alumni Chapter, but I guess Sam stepped out. Anyway, in closing, I want to thank some people. I want to thank Dr. Lawrence Rawball, Director of the Division of Equity and Inclusion at UNM, Dr. Melendez, the Center for Regional Studies at UNM, and of course, Director Scott Carruthers, Director of the Center, African American Student Center. These are people that have supported us, and of course, the UNM Alumni Chapter, Director Dana Allen. These are the organizations that support our organization year-round. Thank you.
I forgot my award.
This concludes our luncheon. We want to thank you all for participating and supporting. At this point, we are going to have Dr. John Carlos, come stand